Hi, my name's Hannah and I'm from ProCandleSupply.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this really fun, bright watermelon melt and pour soap. It's extremely easy to make and it uses all simple ingredients that you can find at ProCandleSupply.com. A quick note before we get started, this recipe can be altered and changed to the colors and proportions of your liking. For example, each of these layers can be adjusted to be larger or smaller, and the colors can be adjusted to be darker or lighter. It really just depends on what you're looking for. This one is a much lighter watermelon color than this one, but that's because this one's using a different coloring agent. This uses mica, and this one is using our liquid soap dye. It just goes to show that you can change the recipe based on your liking as long as you stay within the limits of the ingredients. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the supplies and ingredients that you'll need to make this watermelon soap. You'll need a silicone mold. I'm using a rectangular 6-cavity mold. You'll need a soap cutter. I'm using a straight-sided soap cutter. You'll need some type of pouring pitcher. I'm using our nice pouring pitcher. It's for soap and it's great for ease of pouring because it has a nice little spout. You'll need a silicone spatula or mixing utensil. You'll need fragrance oil. I'm using our watermelon fragrance oil, perfectly appropriate. You'll need some 91% isopropyl alcohol in a little spray bottle. You'll need 2 different colored liquid soap dyes. I'm using green and red. You'll need poppy seeds for the exfoliating watermelon seeds. You'll need some type of measuring device, or you can just wing the poppy seeds. It's really up to you. A calculator, a scale, and then most importantly, I'm using our Pure Luxe Melt and Pour soap. I'm using clear and white. As you can see, the watermelon slice starts with the green layer on the bottom, the white layer in the middle, and then the red layer on top. We're going to be pouring the green layer first. So for the first layer, I'm going to be using approximately 20 grams per bar. So I have a 6-cavity mold. That's 6 times 20 grams, so I'm going to need 120 grams of clear Pure Luxe Melt and Pour soap for the first green layer. So first I'm going to cut up and weigh out 120 grams of the clear Pure Luxe soap. I'm going to take my soap cutter, make sure I'm in grams on my scale because all the ingredients are measured by weight, never by liquid volume. Now I'm going to take my 120 grams of clear soap and cut it into evenly sized cubes. This helps with melting in the microwave so that it heats and melts evenly as you heat your soap up. Now I'm going to take my cut up clear Pure Luxe Melt and Pour soap and place it into my pouring pitcher. I'm now going to put this in the microwave in 30-second intervals until it's nice and smooth and melted. You want to stir in between each interval and make sure that it's heating evenly. And I'm back, and I have my first layer melted and nice and smooth and liquid. So from here, I'm going to add fragrance oil. So it's up to you if you want to add fragrance to every layer of the soap. If you like a lightly scented soap, then you don't have to add fragrance to each layer. But I'm going to go ahead and add the watermelon to each layer. So when you're using a fragrance for soap, you want to make sure that the fragrance is recommended for soap usage. This one is recommended at 3 to 6%. So I'm going to use 3% watermelon fragrance oil in my 120 grams of my base layer. So that is 120 grams times 3%. That's 3.6 grams of watermelon fragrance oil. So I'm going to turn on my scale. Then I'm going to add my pitcher on top, making sure that I'm tared out and in grams. So my scale is now reading 0 now that I've tared it out. I'm going to add 3.6 grams of watermelon. We're going to stir that up. Now that I've added the fragrance oil, I'm going to go ahead and add my green soap dye. It's up to you how much you want to use depending on how dark or light you want your soap to be, as long as you stay within the limits. Today I'm using my green liquid soap dye and I'm going to be adding about 4 drops. And what's nice about this liquid soap dye is after you add it, you can kind of see how dark it's going to be and adjust based on your liking. So you just add the liquid soap dye, stir it up, and you can see how dark the green is. Here's a pro tip. When you put your silicone mold down, make sure it's in a spot that it can stay for a while, because once you start pouring the liquid soap, it can ripple as it dries if you move the silicone soap mold. Now I'm going to pour my first layer. Just going to sit on the bottom. That's why the little spout on the pitcher comes in handy, because you can just nicely pour into each mold with little mess. Now you just want to take your isopropyl alcohol and spray each of the cavities. And this helps eliminate any air bubbles. Now you want to quickly wipe out your soap pitcher if you don't have multiple soap pitchers, to try to eliminate any of the residue from the first layer. It does come in handy having multiple soap pitchers, especially if you need to be quick in between layers, but you can wipe these out if you're quick. Now we'll move on to the second layer, which is the white layer. The white layer, I'm also doing about 20 grams per bar. So that's another 120 grams for the whole 6 cavity mold. So I'm going to weigh out with my scale 120 grams of the white Pure Luxe Melt and Pour soap. Just like the first layer, you're going to cut your white soap into evenly shaped sized cubes to help with even heating. And you're going to again add that right to your soap pitcher. And you're going to place this in the microwave again for 30-second intervals until it's nice and smooth and melted. Okay, so now I have the white layer nice, heated, melted, and smooth. I'm not going to be adding liquid soap dye to this layer because it's already white, which also means that you could use a different type of white soap for this layer. Cocoa butter, goat's milk, shea butter. This is our white Pure Luxe, and I'm not going to be adding soap dye, but I am going to be adding fragrance. So I'm going to turn on my scale, make sure that it reads 0, place the pitcher on, tear it out. Again, I'm using 3%. So I'm going to add another 3.6 grams. Then you're going to stir the fragrance in. And now, because these layers are pretty thin, this first layer is probably already hard enough to go ahead and pour the second white layer. But when you have thicker layers, it sometimes takes a little bit longer for the layers to harden before you pour the next layer. I'm going to spray some isopropyl alcohol one more time. Okay, and then like the first layer, you just want to spray with some isopropyl alcohol to get any air bubbles. Okay, so for the last layer, that is the red or pink layer that has the poppy seeds, fragrance oil, and red liquid soap dye. So for this recipe that I'm using today, I'm using around 74 grams per bar. So 74 grams times 6 bars, I believe, is 444 grams total that I'll need for the last layer. So I'm going to turn on my scale, going to measure out 444 grams of my clear Pure Luxe Melt and Pour soap. And then I'm going to heat and melt it just like the previous layers. Okay, so now that all of my clear Pure Luxe Melt and Pour soap is cut up, I'm going to place it into my soap pitcher again. And I'm going to heat it in 30-second intervals like I did the previous layers. Except, I forgot my spatula. My last and final clear layer is nice and heated and liquid. It's another thing I love about this silicone spatula. It's double-sided, so I don't have to clean both sides the entire time. Use this side, and then I can use this side. With the red and final layer, I'm going to be adding liquid soap dye, fragrance oil, watermelon, and my poppy seeds. So first, I'm going to add the fragrance oil. So I'm going to put the soap pitcher on my scale, tear it out, and then I'm going to be using 3% in 444 grams of soap. Because remember, I'm using 74 grams roughly per layer. 74 grams times 6 is 444 grams of soap. 3% of 444 grams is 13.32 grams of fragrance oil. Now I'm going to add my liquid soap dye. I'm going to be using the Candy Red. I'm using around 15 to 20 drops. looks like a nice color red to me. Now I'm going to add my poppy seeds. So this is, again, another preference. I'm using around 1/4 teaspoon of poppy seeds. I might actually use a little bit more. We're gonna use a 1/2 teaspoon. If you don't want as many, you can add less. Then I'm going to stir my poppy seeds. Make sure my first layer is nice and hard, and it does appear to be. Just make sure that your last layer is cool enough before pouring. Just waiting on it to cool. Cooling, cooling, cooling. Now that it's nice and cool, it's time to pour the third and final layer. So I'm going to spray with isopropyl alcohol one more time and pour the last layer. Woo! You're just going to pour to the top of each one. You look at those cool poppy seeds. Ta-da! Now you just want to spray each one with isopropyl alcohol to get rid of any air bubbles. And that's it. It's that easy. You just let this soap cool, and then once it's fully hardened, you can pop it out of the silicone mold. Then you have this nice, fun, bright watermelon soap that's perfect for spring and summer months. Remember, you can find everything you need to make this same soap at procandlesupply.com, and come back and visit me. Watch this as many times as you need so that you too can make this really fun watermelon soap. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye!